Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Women's Health and Beyond. It is the beginning of 2022, and because of that, I'm going to challenge all you guys to start making some change. And in order to help us, I have a great guest today. Her name is Alix Sabatelli, and she is a transformation junkie. She's a life coach, a nutrition coach, a business coach, and she really is all about making you a better you. And so she's going to give us some tools today to get started on this journey. Obviously, there's a lot more to it that she's not going to do deep dives on today. And we're going to talk about at the end on how to find her. She's co-authored a book. She has an amazing website with some really great educational videos. And she does some one-on-one coaching for anybody who's really interested. And she may even give us a little offer at the end for all my viewers. So stay tuned. But on that note, I'm going to welcome you, Alix, to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here, really, with your tribe, for sure. Thank you.
I know. I love my tribe. And for all my new tribal members, welcome to the show. And the existing ones, I'm glad we're going to restart 2022 strong. And I promise this year, continued education on everything related to women's health and beyond. So tell us a little bit, Alix. It's the beginning of 2022. We all know it's been a rough couple of years. We all want to make some changes, both physically, mentally, and every aspect of our life. Yeah. So I'm going to let you take the charge. How do I get started? What do I need to do?
Right. Well, of course, it's always nice to take your own kind of temperature, if you will, like how happy am I right now? If I could change something in my life, what would it be? What area of my life would it be in? Would it be in my career or around relationships or my health? You know, those are kind of the key big things. Women
or all of it.
Women want to be rich, happy, and hot, right? So it's got to be one of those areas. So
hey,
really,
little disclaimer, just so you know, men do too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, men do too. So really, it's a matter of where am I? Where am I, and where do I want to go? And sometimes that's just in and of itself overwhelming, especially with what we've faced over the last couple of years, and a lot of different narratives spinning around. It's hard to even know what's true anymore, let alone true for ourselves. And what I've really found recently is that something in the energetics of the sort of polarity that is intensified recently is that even within ourselves, there's lots of stuff coming up to be cleared. In a way, it's kind of like when you plant a seed, the first thing that comes up is not the sprout, but the dirt. The stuff that's unlike our intention usually comes up and challenges us to just be let go of, but sometimes we don't know how to do that. So what I'd love to kind of do today is talk a little bit about how do we kind of get started on getting clear of what matters to us, because that's what's going to create an intrinsic motivation to make a change. And then how do we take a look at the obstacles that we've put in place, whether it's a mindset or perception, something that other people, that we allow our outside world to dictate for us, that keeps us from making those changes. Because quite frankly, what got us here to where we are today is not what's going to get us to where we want to go. So we do have to take that kind of hard look in the mirror and decide, okay, what changes do I need to make? What am I willing to make? And then also consider the difference between using sheer willpower to make a change versus stepping into a much more magnetic intrinsic power from being in alignment. And that's really what my whole website's about. Sweet Spot Power is finding that alignment, getting yourself into an alignment so you can tap more of a universal power or a spiritual power or what have you, and cooperate with the universe rather than be, forcing yourself through and trying to make things happen. So
yeah, I love that. I always say life is like an orchestra. You have to have harmony in all aspects of your life in order to really reach optimum levels. So I'm glad you're going to talk about doing that. So
yeah.
If I was coming to you, advise me on how to
okay,
do this.
Let's just first take that first temperature. How do you feel? I think this is easier for women. Women tend to be more feelers, more intuition in general, a little bit more right-brained than men. So tapping into how we feel isn't maybe as difficult as it is for men. With men, it's a little bit more about what do I think about how I feel.
Yeah,
But
sure.
how do you feel is really a first place to go. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate that for yourself? And then can you hone that into a certain area? I would say that the best practice you could do to first kind of figure out what do I want to change in my life is just do a brain dump on what you don't want. Now, this is not going to bring it into your life. This is really just an exercise. Most people know more about what they don't want than they do about what they do want. So if you can just list out what you don't want in your life and think about the different areas, think about your health, or maybe perhaps, for your tribe, maybe somebody wants to get pregnant and they have some fibroids or they have something going on with their body that's keeping them from being able to get pregnant. I don't want those fibroids anymore. I don't want this excess weight that's keeping me from conceiving, or whatever that might be. Think about your health, think about your relationships, and also, again, think about what you do in the world, whether you work outside of the home, inside of the home, if you have a career, if you have a job, if there's something that's inside you that you feel you would like to be able to do, but maybe you don't feel ready to bring that message out to the world, or something to this effect. Just write out everything you don't want and get passionate about it. Just brain dump it all out there. And then
should one break it up into categories like just
you
like
can
health,
afterwards.
relationships?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, I would just say, let it be a free dump first. Just let it all out. You don't want to overthink anything. You want to just kind of get it out. And then from that point, yes, if you want to categorize it, and then go through that list and look at the ones those things that you especially don't want, like the ones that really pull up a feeling inside of you, and put a little star next to those, or number them, if you will. And that's really the list you're going to work from, because what I want you to do next is to flip all of those don't wants into the opposite, into the do want that would be directly opposite of that would start to feel really good to you, and list those all out. Now, then you can have a little ceremony and burn carefully, safely burn or destroy the page of the things that you don't want. You don't want those things to come into your life. But now you've got a list of some things that really start to stir up some desire inside of you. And even though desire, I don't think is necessarily a great emotion, I think desire can actually hold the thing you want away from you. It can at least stir a direction, something that is positive and moving you and starting to pull towards you ideas for how to make that thing happen. So there's going to be some resistance at this point. And when you start to go through that list of what you do want, I do want you to go through it again and prioritize those things. What are the most important do wants? What are some of the things that are really going to move the needle? Try to put those into a priority, because you can't hit them all at the same time. Obviously, you're going to want to tackle these in some way where maybe even one change a month. Gosh, could you imagine just one goal a month? What you can do in 1 year? It's pretty incredible.
Oh my God. Yeah,
I know.
for sure.
Exactly. Most people try to tackle 12 things without diving into the intrinsic motivators that make it easier for other, for stuff to be attracted to you, new ways of doing things to come to you, instead of hammering through it with willpower, which is really more like force. And so now that you've got that list, at this point, it's really important to start to identify why don't I have this now? What are the barriers that I've put into place? Is it a belief or a perception about this thing? Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I don't have time for that, or whatever those things are. You want to actually list out some of those barriers that you've put in place, and be willing at that point to take a harder look. Because if you really want this thing, you can write out what it means to you. What would it really be like to have that new way of being, or that situation, or that new body, or whatever it is? What would it really mean to you? So you really attach to it from a deeper level. Then when there's meaning to it, there's more context to it, those barriers start to kind of seem ridiculous, and you can start to melt away some of those barriers or beliefs. And it might be a long-seated belief, something that happened in your childhood, or something, oh, you can't do that, you're not good at that, or some kind of a negative ego thing that's keeping you playing small. but what if, you can kind of put a little, but what if I could do that? Or what if I dropped that belief? What if that belief wasn't true? And you can start busting through some of those barriers, which will just, again, start to lighten the whole goal, if you will, and start bringing it more into life. Because we hold things down. We are naturally happy. We are naturally in bliss and joy. It's our thoughts and our perceptions and the fog we put over everything, the beliefs that we have that really actually are like putting clouds over the sun and keep us from feeling that intrinsic natural joy and state of happiness. So we can barrier bust some of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, there's new life and breath and energy for that thing that you want to create in your life. And it starts to come alive right away. It's pretty cool.
Awesome. So Alix, just to recap for the audience, because you gave a lot of information. First of all, just so everybody's on the same page, I think as human beings psychologically, we're always afraid of the unknown. I think that's a big part of why people don't make change, right? It's kind of stabilizing, or almost we play it as it's almost okay to stay in that situation because it's familiar to us.
Yep.
And I think it's really hard to go and reach out and expand ourselves to the unknown. But the unknown is really where we find happiness, where we find change, where we really metamorph into a better person. So just for the audience, so after our call, I'm gonna go take a sheet of paper and I'm gonna write down everything that I want to change about myself, or everything I feel bad about myself.
Just what you don't want. Just what
I don't want.
Yep.
Then I'm going to label that in chronological priority. So 1 through 10, let's say. And then I'm going to focus on, let's just start with an easy one on my number one most important thing I want to change in the beginning. I'll take that and I'll look at what are the barriers on why I haven't achieved that number one goal yet. And I'll become cognizant of what's holding me back, so I can start working on that. But at the same time, I'm going to write down what it's going to feel like when I achieve that goal.
Right.
And I'm going to out loud on a daily basis tell myself that I am already at that achieved goal.
Yes, that was the next piece.
Go ahead. So I just want to, because I'm going to do this exercise.
Yes,
because we
it's
all
very
have
close.
changes.
It was
one
very
goal
close.
a month is very doable.
Yes. Well, the one piece that you miss, so you make the list of what you don't want. And again, just be non-discriminate about that. And it could be, I don't want prejudice. I don't want division.
Whatever it is.
Yeah. It could be anything, right? And then take that whole list and flip them. Okay. So what do you want? What does that tell you that you do want? Okay, flip them, then go ahead and prioritize the ones that are most important for right now, because we definitely don't want to leave you in the state of all the crap that you don't want in your life.
Yeah.
So flip them, get rid of that old list, prioritize, and then you might take a few different things and say, okay, what are the barriers at that point? Yes, absolutely. What can I, it's not even what do I believe I can shift, it's just what are the barriers? And then you challenge the barriers, because that in and of itself will start to move you towards and move that goal towards you. You don't have to go out and plow through it. It will start to come to you. And so then, yes, I think it's extremely important at that point to, yes, what does it mean? What does it actually look like and feel like to have this goal? And as if it already is. And that's something you can journal about in the morning. If you were to take just a couple of minutes in the morning and just be still, be grateful, find a few things to be grateful for. You can write those out if you want, and then just journal out. I'm so happy and grateful that this is what's happening in my life right now. I can't believe how easy it's been, and the resources that have come my way, and the people and the ideas that I didn't even realize were going to make it so much easier than I thought. And you just start to pull towards you this energy that just makes things start to manifest right in front of you. And it
makes sense.
Feels so good.
So just for everybody out there, when you do this, because I think this is crucial for you to define what you want to achieve in 2022, please make sure you do it uninterrupted, no technology devices, no phones next to you, just by yourself. Like be comfortable with yourself.
Yeah, and I think also a really great question, this is kind of a little pro tip on when you're going through the barriers, because that's really the biggest thing, is what we believe, what we hold deep inside of us that keeps us from what we want. Understanding that the ego is really like the small self, if you will. It can be both grandiose and you know, ooh, look at me, and it can also be very more inferior, like, oh, pity, you know, this never works for me, you know, I'm never good enough, and that's the type of ego that I have, is definitely just self-deprecating and self-sabotaging, and oh, it's just awful. It's quite brutal. But when you start to actually question those barriers and you recognize that voice, that little small voice that's keeping you playing small, kind of ask yourself, how is playing small actually serving me? Actually dig in a little bit and see how your little ego, your little self is actually juicing the negative self-talk to keep itself in its own form, in its own place of pity. And that's a hard one, you know, that's a hard one to swallow. It's much easier.
That is hard,
you know, but it is one of the biggest barriers for women. We tend to do this quite often. And so,
well, I think subconsciously you say that because you're supporting where you are. You're justifying your place and your ego.
That's right.
So you're right. It's really, again, about taking that next leap to the unknown.
Yes.
And so.
Yes, and life begins at the edge of your comfort zone, no doubt about it. If you're in your comfort zone, you are in the small self. The large, the capital self is your higher self. That's the part of you that knows. That's the part of you that's going to conspire with the capital self of everyone else to bring what you want towards you. And that's really what we want to embody more and more of, is that higher level of what's in your highest and best good. And sometimes, you know, if you're prayerful or if you set intentions, you know, ask for a new perspective, you know, pray for a new perspective on something that is challenging you and keeping you, you know, from doing those things. If you're at the store or you're out to eat and you're looking at a menu and you're just like, oh, well, yes, I know I shouldn't eat that. The doctor said I shouldn't eat that. It's not very motivating. But if you know that, gosh, if I start eating in this way, this is what's going to support my body in losing this particular weight so that I can now conceive this child I've been wanting, you know, suddenly when you've done that work from the back, you know, from the goal backwards, there's no question you're going to choose the right thing for yourself. You're working with a higher place than the small self that wants that gratification right now. So that's just kind of an example of how different and how much easier that this, you know, achieving what you want to create in your life is when you take the time to do the work the proper direction, you know, really aligning with your higher self and the higher meaning.
Yeah, it makes total sense. So Alix, I've now defined my number one goal that I want to achieve. I've now defined my barriers that I've been putting up in order not to achieve it subconsciously. Mm-hmm. And now I know what to do to achieve it. So, or maybe I think I may know what to do on how to go about it. But, you know, still taking that first step forward is hard, right? Because it can be overwhelming for a lot of people, depending on what you're trying to achieve. And maybe, so two questions. One, should you make your first goal an easier goal to achieve, so sort of help reward yourself, or it doesn't matter? And second, well, how do I start?
Okay, well, the universe knows no order and difficulty of the size of anything. So you set the goal as big as you want.
Darn universe.
I'm just, you know, put it out there. I'm a little woo-woo. So the important thing is to know that once you kind of do some of this work, you want to give a little bit of time to integrate these ideas with what it is, you know, all this work. You don't want to then try to hammer through and figure out what the goals are exactly. What do I need to do? Because then we're moving already outside of allowing some inspiration to come, some resources to come. We want to create space for that. That's actually where the magic happens. So after you do this work, give yourself a day or two, you know, contemplate it a little bit and just kind of, you know, marinate a little bit in the outcome that you're wanting as if it already is. And then be really aware of what starts to come. Whether it's all of a sudden an idea pops in your mind, all of a sudden the phone call from your friend, they're starting this new diet and it just makes sense, you know, and they want to do it with you so that they have some accountability, or, you know, whatever it is, it's going to start coming to you. And
Yeah.
so when you have that faith that this is kind of how things actually work with power, okay, over making it all happen and thinking that from what got us here is going to get us there, we're just going to be pulling from what we already know. And we don't know yet because we're not there. We've never been there. So we really want to rely on a much greater power to start coming towards us. And that is not woo-woo. That is the way that things work. We
It is.
just
I can
think
yeah.
that we can make it happen faster from our small self. So does that make sense?
So yeah. So basically, just to recap again, because I want to take baby steps.
I love it how you do that.
So so I've created my list. I've singled out the goal. We figured out what the barriers, what the possibilities are. Now I'm going to take a couple of days to let it sink in. Mm-hmm. But during those couple of days, I'm actually going to believe that I'm there, mm-hmm. and I'm going to let the universe bring me mm-hmm. all the potential opportunities. And I think with the train of thought that you're already there, you may seize the opportunity or see the opportunity mm-hmm. in what the universe brings you as a positive. Is that correct?
Right. Absolutely. And at this point too, you can create just some spaces. You know, now that these are priorities for you, you don't have to fill in the exact hows and whats, but create the spaces in your calendar to do these things. Like if you know that the next thing is, I got to start moving my body, you know, it's just got to happen. So start creating just the window of where that's going to fill in. You don't know what you might do. And maybe you need to move that window somewhere else, but just recognize that nature abhors a vacuum and it's going to want to fill it in with something. So if you create the spaces in those couple of days to implement a little something, then it's going to fill in. Now, a lot of people say, well, I just don't have time. Well, and that's just the small self sabotaging you. We always have time and money for what matters to us. So you got to make it matter. That's the reason why we want to do all this kind of pre-work, because when we even say the words, it matters to me, we're making it real. We're making it turn into matter, into something that's actually manifesting in our life. So there's always time and money for what matters. And sometimes we have to kind of just get creative with that as well and put that out there. Please show me a creative way to find more time today. Please show me a creative way to be able to make this happen, even though I don't have the financial resources right now. You know, what else can I do? And those, again, when you ask, it'll come. You just have to listen. And also when you listen and you hear and these things come to you, that next day when you're going through that little bit of a writing, that little exercise, if you will, put in the gratitude for that it came. Thank you so much for showing me today exactly what I was asking for. That will strengthen your own intuition and your ability to be able to kind of magically create what it is you're trying to manifest. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think I'm a big fan of whatever you put out in the universe comes right back to you. Mm-hmm. So, right. Alex, let me ask you, can you give us some pro tools if I've decided to achieve this goal and this goal may not, you know, let's say it's getting into shape. Getting into shape mm-hmm. takes a long time and at times can be a little bit boring because you may not see the radical transformation overnight.
Right.
So how does one maintain the motivation to continue that hard work? Are there tips that you recommend that we do in order to make sure we're still as focused as we were on day one?
I think it's, I think the important thing is to not see a goal as a goal that's always out there that you're just going to get. And instead embodying the who I am when this goal is achieved, you kind of just become that rather than it being like, okay, I'm going to do this so that I can get to that place. You can reward yourself along the way if you want, like for every 10 pounds I lose or 5 pounds that I lose, I'm going to allow myself to get a new pair of Lululemon, you know, leggings or something like that, right? You can certainly reward yourself to stay motivated if that motivates you, but that's still extrinsic motivation. The most important thing is become it in your mind ahead of time. And then you just act in that way. It's kind of like, well, it's like if I were a fit person, then I would work out at least a few times a week. It's just what is. It's not because I want to be a fit person that I already am. And therefore I maintain that. Just maintain the body, the mindset, the person who you are wanting to become as if you already are. And then it'll just happen. You know, we don't get overweight without having in our mind that, you know, it's okay to not eat a certain way. You know, it's just kind of, you have to become it. And then it's not really, I would say that, you know, the one change a month idea is just to create the habit out of it. In the beginning, it'll feel a little unusual. You know, I'm not used to being a fit person, and now I'm a fit person, and that means I've got to go over to the gym. So it might take a little bit just to kind of get your brain to get new grooves going, because we have synapses that are used to doing the same patterns, and we have to weaken those old patterns and create new synapses. And so it's like a new groove is how I call it. So sometimes it takes a few weeks to get the new groove. But if in your mind you already are that new person, then doing that really isn't as difficult as we make it. So I don't know if that, it's kind of a different way of seeing it, but if you're trying to motivate yourself extrinsically by hitting a certain goal or this or that type of a specific outside result, then you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. It's unfortunate. Yeah. It just happens. And then, well, no, this isn't working for me. Because in a way you're saying, I won't believe it until I see it. You have to see it in your mind first, and you have to believe that it's your truth before you're going to see it.
Yeah, you know? For sure. And I think being gentle on your spirit, so praising yourself internally, is super important. Yeah. And I think, as you mentioned, if you're going to journal, which I think is a great idea, and I love journaling for many reasons. I think it just gives you some time alone with yourself. Mm-hmm. To really think about what's going on in your life and express it, but then go back to your journals. So go back to January 2022 when you didn't feel so good about yourself.
You bet.
And then I think, yeah, I mean, you're right. And just comparing to how you feel today, many months later, after you've started your journey, to what you felt like before is going to be a motivator by itself.
That's right. That's right. Another really great exercise, this is another piece that can really bring it home, is to kind of fast forward a few years and write out, you know, you could take it as far as your own obituary and say, hey, you know, looking back on the life of me, you know, what would I want people to say about me? You know, what are those? That's what's going to show you what's really important to you, by the way. It's a hard exercise to do because you can't lie, especially on paper. You know, if you handwrite stuff, you can't lie on paper what you want. And so a lot of this work is really powerful for that reason. But if you are able to then place yourself up in advance of kind of like, okay, it's a year from now and I'm rereading my journal, like you're just saying, what do I want it to say? You know, what do I want that journey to have completed looking like, you know, and that's exciting. That's actually really kind of a lot of fun. And that year is going to go by way faster than you know. And we from here, it looks like it's forever, but it goes by pretty fast.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And I think the journey of change is so hard but yet so rewarding that if you have the opportunity to get outside help, you guys, and utilize a life coach or a nutritionist or whatever you're trying to do as support, as an educator, as a motivator, do it. I think we really, as human beings, you said it, when we want change, there's always time and there's always enough money to pay for it. And I really strongly believe when you're changing yourself, it's priceless, because the end reward is going to give you back so much more than just the mere spending a little bit up front for the change. Absolutely. So embrace it. If you're not going to do it with Alix, do it with somebody else. If you don't want to do it with a person, do it with audiobooks, reading, journaling, educate yourself on the subject. Yeah,
absolutely. It creates an updraft, an up spiral in your life, and one thing becomes the next thing, becomes the next thing, and you start on a journey that can just take you so far. Once you just take the first steps, it really just it's that first commitment. You know, it's that first change where you can kind of go, look at that, I did it. You know, that was amazing. What's next? You know, what's next? And then the inspirations continue. And that's really, again, what Sweet Spot Power is about. And if I can just share a little bit about kind of the philosophy of that, you know, and what's there, you know, I love kind of hacking at trying to change certain areas of our life, because that's what I've done, you know, through my journey. I decided to quit smoking and become a mother. That was the beginning of mine. I started learning about nutrition, and that just changed my life. It was incredible. And once I started eating well, then I started reading more. For some reason, it woke up my brain, and I started becoming a voracious learner. And then I was learning about, you know, all these other mindsets and things that I could change. And And so it just kind of continued and continued. And every time I would learn something, I wanted to teach it because it was just exciting. It's a big part of how I learn is to teach it to somebody else. And then people started coming to me and saying, well, what are you doing? My goodness, I'm noticing these changes in you. And so I would teach them. And so my website really is about it's kind of a conglomeration of all of these changes I've made through the up spirals and waves, ups and downs of my life over the last 40, 30 years. Gosh, how old are my kids now? Anyways, I won't date myself. But basically it started with the body, and it moved from the body up into a lot of mindset work. And then it became much more spiritual work. And then it became the work I was doing in the world. I've been an entrepreneur forever. And so everything that I would do would lead to the next thing, to the next thing. It was just a constant unfoldment. And it's super exciting and fun. And so along the way, I would find different hacks, like the best way for me to eat, the best, supplement for this. I found some really cool different things that will help with the brain, and phototherapy patches, and just all kinds of different hacks that can help to shift the body to get the mind working right, or to shift the mind to get you to do this other thing, and all different ways to kind of get started and keep moving up the spiral. And so I have them divided out from basically mind, body, and spirit. And you're more than welcome to check it out and see if any of those things resonate. Because people ask me, I go ahead and I have a lot of different interviews and different teachings on there, so you can dive deep into certain areas if you're feeling like you're ready to make some changes. It's all free. And if you need some help or guidance, I definitely have put together so you guys can just jump on with me on the phone for 15 minutes after you've done your work and you want to kind of say, okay, what do I do? Where do I start? I can help you kind of hone in on that and make like a simple plan, at least for your next 30 days, to kind of get you going, without you having to pay for anything on that, unless it's products or something like that. So that's what that resource is really there for. Yeah.
Thank you, Alix. That's amazing stuff. So basically, you guys, at the end of the day, if you're looking to expand, you said you started with body transformation, and from there it went on to mind transformation, spiritual, to anti-aging stuff. So it just shows you, just start with one thing that bothers you, and you'll see that before you know it, just the satisfaction of being able to get over that one big hurdle that's affecting you is such a reward spiritually, mentally, that you're going to feel more confident to tackle other things.
That's right.
And before you know it, all of this stuff is going to start coming to you from the universe. And I know it sounds a little a little out there when I talk about universe and magnetism, but it's really true. It works. It happens to me on a daily basis. I think of something and it comes to me. I think of a person. The next thing I know, they're texting me or calling me.
Exactly.
And that's because you put it out there and it comes right back. So now that we all know that we're ready for change, you gave us some very basic tools on how to start this journey. Tell us about, how do people find you, Alix, if they're looking for you? Do you have a website to go to?
Yes.
And then maybe give us some last minute, like
any last pointers. We'll see what comes through.
Yes, channel it.
Exactly. So my website is sweetspotpower.com. Sweetspotpower.com. You'll find just on that main page there's body love, there's age hacks, there's quantum mind. There's all kinds of stuff on there. There's kind of 5 different sections that you can dive into, kind of get my philosophy and some next steps and some of the tools and hacks and videos there. So you can learn more. There's lots there. Of course, I'm also on YouTube, but all the links will be right there on that website. It's the best place to start, sweetspotpower.com. You'll also find on there just different links. Hey, to connect with me. Hey, where do I start? They all pretty much will lead you directly into my calendar. I've set aside 3 times a day for the next couple of weeks for this crew. If you guys want to take 15 minutes and just, hop on the line, I do ask that you go ahead and at least do this exercise first, because it really is helpful. and you'll come much more equipped with some ideas of what you're ready to do. And then I can guide you a lot more directly. So that would be really helpful. So,
so exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to do that. And also in that vein, I have that whole process for a real deep dive. If you really want to go in and take a deeper look at, what your values are, what really matters to you. I have all of that process deep that's available that I can send to you. So you can certainly reach out to me from the website in the contact form and just say, hey, can you share that document with me? And I'll send that off to you. It's about 7 pages, but it is an appointment with yourself and you can kind of dive into that work. It's worth doing, at least once a year. It really is, just to get yourself really aligned and to work with the powers that are, instead of just the personal small self will from where we've been in the past. It's just not enough. There's much
I love it
out there.
So you guys, super excited that Alix shared some of her pearls with us at the beginning of 2022, because I'm going to do my transformation journey. I'm going to do the exercise we talked about. Please reach out to her if you're interested. She's been gracious enough to give us a free initial sort of consultation, which is amazing. And whether it's Alix or not, please treat yourself and give yourself the tools for success. So whether it's a coach or books or however you want to tackle it, do it. Just start. No more excuses. Alix, thank you. I'm gonna put all your information and social handles for everybody to have access to. And I'd love to have you back to do a little deeper dive on some HACs.
Absolutely.
As you know, I'm super interested in stem cells and infrared light.
Yeah. They got my woo-woo side today, but they can get my my inner geek later.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm going to leave you guys with one quick anti-aging thought. Don't sweat the small stuff. I know we all are being bombarded with politics and healthcare advice and all of this during these crazy times. So don't sweat the small stuff. Love yourself and love others. Alix, thank you for being on the show. You're amazing. And I look forward to having you on again.
I look forward to it too. Thanks so much. Happy New Year, y'all.